Hello everybody, welcome to Freddy Cooks International Soul Food. Today we are making West African peanut butter stew. I watched about 3 different authentic African recipes to get a general idea of how to make this, and now I am so happy to share this with you. I'm going to put the links of the channels that I watched in the description below, but I hope to show you how very easy this particular dish is to make, because over the past few months, especially on TikTok and YouTube, there's been such a crave of people from all over the world trying African food for the very first time. And I'd like to encourage someone out there to attempt this yourself because it's so easy. I love this soup and I hope you love it too. I'm starting with about 4 cups of water. And this is something that I have done differently than some of the others. Actually, all 3 recipes are a little different, so I just got a general idea of how they prepared it and brought my own spin to it. I will be seasoning and tenderizing my chicken and boneless rib strips by seasoning my water with salt, pepper, and garlic powder. One thing that I always like to do is make sure that my food is seasoned through and through. So I'm going to be seasoning my chicken and my rib down first to make sure it's nice and tender and seasoned, and then I will actually build the stew. So I'm entering in washed chicken thighs, chicken legs, and boneless rib strips. Now, I know you may have heard that you're not supposed to wash your chicken, but my grandmama been washing her chicken all her life. And as a matter of fact, I think it's wise to wash the chicken because you don't know where your chicken been, where your meat been before it got to you. Somebody could have dropped it on the floor and rubbed it all on everything. So I tell you what, wash your chicken and use some Clorox to sterilize your sink in your area afterwards. I promise you, it's gonna be okay. Wash your chicken, wash your meat, please. Now, we're going to boil this at a medium-high heat until all of the water has boiled out of it. Okay, as you can see here, most of the water has boiled out of it already, and I have all that seasoning around the pot. Don't worry about it, we'll get that later. But we're going to turn this back up, cover it, and let all of that water boil out. Changing pace a little bit, we are going to grind up handful of ginger, handful of fresh garlic, 2 jalapenos. You can use 3 or 4 depending on how spicy you like it. You'll get a decent spice with just 2. Grind it up. Maybe you want to do 3 if you like it spicy. So grind this up really nicely. You can use a food processor if you like. I'm going to be adding a little lime, just a splash of lime here. You can do a teaspoon or half teaspoon, doesn't matter here. It's very forgiving. And we're going to finish grinding to a paste. Okay, now you can see that all of the water has boiled out. All of the seasoning that was around the pot, I've already put it back into the pot on the meat. And you are going to need to come back every now and then to check on it to make sure you hadn't boiled all of the water completely out and it's frying and burning. But once you get down to this stage to where it's about to start frying, you don't want to fry it, then it's time to start building your stew. We're going to now add about 5 cups of water, and that depends on how much meat you have. This was, I don't know how much meat this was, but if you have more meat, you use more water so it's not too thick. If you don't have that much meat, you may not need to use as much water. You'd have to eyeball that to determine how much water you need. But I'm adding about 5 cups of water. I am adding one whole medium onion. Even if I had a large onion, I would still add the entire onion because I love onion just that much. But I'm also adding 2 carrots, cut pretty big in chunks. We're also going to be adding 2 medium potatoes and cut them in pretty big chunks as well. Now it's time to season. We're going to season with more garlic powder because we seasoned our meat first. Now we're going to actually season the stew. Garlic powder, salt and pepper, about a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of pepper, heaping teaspoons. Now we're adding our paste that we made out of the habanero, ginger, and garlic. And I'm just washing or rinsing my mortar out so that I get all of the garlic and ginger that I grinded up. And I'm adding more water because I felt like I needed it once I added the other ingredients. Now we're going to add 1 can of tomato sauce. That's a 15-ounce can, by the way. Now I'm going to be adding some tomato paste. And as you can see, I don't know if you caught that, but I basically rinsed the can out to make sure that all of the sauce was out. And I'm also going to be rinsing this can out as well to make sure all of the tomato paste is out. This is an 8-ounce can of tomato paste. Also make sure not to stir too much because your meat now should be nice and tender. You don't want to break it up too much. So just be very gentle. I'm adding 1 chicken bouillon. Crumble it up into little pieces. So 1 chicken bouillon cube. I'm also going to add some chicken seasoning later. I just forgot to do it earlier, but also want to use chicken seasoning or chicken powder, poultry seasoning. And I'm using about 8 ounces of peanut butter. Now here's one of the most important parts of cooking this stew. The peanut butter has to cook, and you're going to cook all of the oil out of the peanut butter. And the way for you to determine that this stew is done, you're going to see the oil come to the top of the stew. So this stew has to thicken up, and you need to see the oil rise to the top of the stew. These are all of the ingredients, and it's so simple. This is all we have. No, it don't look like much of nothing now, but we have to cook this and just wait and see just what this is about to be. Right now, I'm just making sure that all of the peanut butter that I've added is nice and incorporated, all of the tomato paste and tomato sauce. It's nice and incorporated, but I'm trying not to break up the meat that I have in here. Now, we're going to cover this and let it boil at a medium-high heat. Once it comes to a rolling boil, we can eventually turn it down, but this peanut butter, this stew has to cook. So we're gonna boil it and come back and check on it. It has to thicken up. This is what it's looking like after, I don't know how long this has been, but you can see it's starting to thicken up. And I still don't want to break up my chicken because the longer it cooks, the more tender it's going to get. I'm just checking on it now to see what it's looking like. I can see that The oil from the peanut butter is starting to want to come to the top, but this still has to cook. That there is just the chicken powder that I forgot to add earlier. That's what that is. Now I tasted my spoon, and this wasn't spicy enough for me, so I have added 2 whole habaneros into the pot. That's all a matter of your option. Now I've come back a little bit later, and you can see the oil. That's the oil that I'm speaking of. That's what you want. This has a little bit more to go. We're gonna let it boil down, and then after coming back, this peanut butter stew is done. I've already turned my heat down some time ago to a low heat and let it just simmer and simmer and simmer, and this is the finished product. So delicious, and I hope you will try it. And if you want to see me eat it and see how I enjoyed this beautiful dish, then don't forget to stop back by Freddy Cooks International African Food Mukbang. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Until later.